There he is, Ben. Good. Oh, it's not morning now. Good afternoon. How are we
It's
doing?
still morning PST, so that's fine.
Good morning. Good morning, Ben. How are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay, guys, I see we have Ben's slides. Let's get them up. There they are. Ben, tell us all about Filament Health, what you guys are working on.
Happy to do so. Good afternoon and morning, everybody. My name is Ben Lightburn. I'm CEO and co-founder of Filament Health. We are a naturally focused psychedelics, drug discovery, and extraction technology company. My own background is I'm from the startup community in Vancouver and internationally, and I've spent my whole career actually commercializing novel extraction technologies for taking high value compounds out of the natural world from plants and fungi and commercializing them in a number of different industries, like the pharmaceutical industry, the nutraceutical industry, the cosmetics industry, food and beverage industry. The core team of Filament came with me from a previously exited company called Matza Innovation, where we had developed a technology for replacing solvent extraction for the manufacture of dietary supplements and food ingredients. And it's really with that experience of building an extraction company and selling the company that we have turned our attention to psychedelics. As we know, psychedelics are a very promising potential antidote for many of the mental health problems that we face in society today. Rates of depression, addiction, PTSD, the opioid overdose epidemic, all of these things can potentially be alleviated by psychedelics. We believe, however, that without a natural psychedelic option part of the mix, that consumer uptake may be less, because as we know, people prefer natural products in all aspects of their life. And that's really why we decided to start Filament, was to bring a legitimate, responsible GMP natural extraction option for pharmaceutical grade natural psychedelics. Because when you hear natural, you often think, well, natural just means nutraceutical, or natural cannot be pharmaceutical. And in fact, nothing could be farther from the truth. Over 40% of all pharmaceutical products that get approved have some kind of natural or botanical origin. And in fact, the largest selling cancer drug of all time was actually a natural extract of the yew tree, as a compound called paclitaxel, marketed under the brand name Taxol. And applying this framework of the natural world as a potent source for pharmaceuticals to the psychedelics industry becomes even more interesting. It's important to remember that all psychedelics were once natural compounds. They were discovered in the natural world. But because of prohibition, very few of them have been studied clinically. We all hear about psilocybin and LSD, but what about 5-MeO-DMT? What about bufotenin? There are many other compounds left in the natural world, and all it takes is a company like ours to establish the technologies necessary for transforming them from a variable psychedelic biomass raw material into a pharmaceutical grade extract. And that's what we're doing. The other thing about natural that we like to talk about is this idea of the entourage effect. While we don't actually have any evidence so far that it exists, the important thing to talk about is that, well, when you make a natural extract, you're extracting more than just the primary compound. In the case of psilocybin from magic mushrooms, when you make a magic mushroom extract, you're extracting not just psilocybin, you're extracting baeocystin, norbaeocystin, psilocin, norpsilocin, all these other compounds. And it's very possible that these other compounds, either alone or in combination with the rest of the compounds, may have some kind of therapeutic benefit compared to just the psilocybin. Most companies in the industry are manufacturing psilocybin synthetically. And when you manufacture psilocybin synthetically, you only make psilocybin. You're not making any of these other compounds, which, as we have to remember, in nature, they evolved over millions of years, probably to serve some purpose. So they certainly bear studying. And without a natural extraction process, we're never going to have the opportunity to study them. A little bit about where we do all of our work. We're one of the few companies globally to possess a controlled substance license, in our case, a Canadian Health Canada dealer's license, as well as be GMP certified. What this allows us to do is produce clinical trial candidates for our own clinical trials, as well as potentially supply other compounds for their clinical trials, other companies for their clinical trials. We're currently underway in a number of such negotiations and hope to have some details to be able to publicize soon. The other thing that we do in our lab is we do propagation research, extraction research. We are developing a whole suite of technologies necessary for extracting high-value compounds from psychedelic biomasses, and in fact, applying for intellectual property protection on those technologies. And we're excited to announce recently we were granted the very first patent for the extraction and standardization of natural psilocybin from the magic mushroom. I mentioned that we produce clinical trial drug candidates for our own clinical trials, as well as for those of third parties. So I'm just going to talk a bit about our clinical development program. We have 3 very exciting drug candidates, PEX10, PEX20, and PEX30. PEX10 is a standardized 25 milligram oral capsule of psilocybin. It's important to note that although it's standardized to psilocybin content, because it's a botanical drug, it actually contains all of the other natural secondary metabolites that are present in the magic mushroom. So just because it has 25 milligrams of psilocybin doesn't mean it doesn't also include all of these other compounds as well. PEX20 and PEX30 are standardized to a compound from the magic mushroom, which is not psilocybin, that we are very excited to study in the clinic because we think that it might have some significant benefits compared to psilocybin. These benefits may include faster onset time, a higher peak intensity, lower gastrointestinal side effects, and probably a more consistent and stable dose. PEX20 is this compound in an oral capsule. PEX30 is this compound in a sublingual tablet. Our phase 1 trial, for which we have already submitted an IND application to the FDA and expect to have IND authorization quite soon in the near term, is going to be a phase 1 trial which will examine the effects of all 3 of these compounds in a within subject design. So we'll look at the effects of PEX10, which is oral psilocybin, against the oral and sublingual preparations of our second compound. The phase 2 trial, which is being set up in parallel to the phase 1 trial, is going to administer our 25 milligram oral capsule of psilocybin in patients with major depressive disorder. But one really unique thing that we're doing in this trial is that we're using ketamine as an active placebo for the psilocybin. And the reason for doing this is to overcome a major deficiency common in all psychedelics research, which is the problem of poor placebo control. With psychedelic therapy, it's very obvious for patients and therapists to know whether or not the active or placebo dose was administered. By employing ketamine as a placebo, we can maintain in the clinic confusion amongst the patients as well as the therapists, whether they've received the ketamine dose or the psilocybin dose. Additionally, we know and we recognize the fact that ketamine is an effective antidepressant agent, but also that the antidepressant effects of the ketamine wear off after a few days or maybe after a week. Current research is showing that the antidepressant effects of psilocybin can persist for many months, 6 months, maybe even a year. And so we seek to show a very good separation in the data between the ketamine group and the psilocybin group, and really hope to have the most robust psychedelic assisted therapy, psychotherapy, clinical data out of any trial that's been conducted. One of the things that attracted us to approaching the psychedelics industry from a natural angle is the ability to generate a large amount of intellectual property. Because of prohibition, none of the technologies necessary for extracting, standardizing, purifying, all the compositions of matter. None of these things, which in any sort of normal industry would have been described long ago, none of these technologies have actually been identified, described, and in many cases, what little literature you can find in journals or on the internet that's been published is actually wrong. So that's given us an opportunity to go out and generate a lot of IP around all of these different kinds of technologies, because when you are producing, say, for instance, a magic mushroom extract, the number of ways in which it is viable or feasible to make this extract is actually limited by the nature of the biomass, the nature of the target compound, and by the nature of the final preparation that you must achieve. So what we've done, in fact, in the lab is identified all of these feasible methods. We've identified 3 of them, and we've been able to patent one of them, and we have obviously patent applications on the remaining 2. So we believe before long we will have essentially patented all of the economically feasible ways to make a magic mushroom extract. And we believe this gives us a very good moat around any company wishing to manufacture naturally or come to market with a natural product. If you compare that IP strategy, which obviously we believe is very strong, to the IP strategy of a synthetically focused company like, for instance, Compass Pathways, they have a patent, yes, but it's on a very specific form of polymorphic crystalline psilocybin. And this very specific patent doesn't preclude anybody else from having their own polymorphic form or a slightly different composition of matter. And in fact, Compass freely admits that on their website. So the point is to say that a patent on any one crystalline form of polymorphic crystalline form of synthetic psilocybin really isn't that valuable, because many other polymorphic forms are possible. Contrast that again to natural, where there really are a limited number of effective ways to manufacture the product. And we've been able, because of prohibition and because of our expertise in this area, have been able to go out and essentially claim them all. Just going to skip over some of this because we are running out of time. I mentioned our first patent issuance. This is very exciting because it's really a validation of the strategy that we embarked upon at the outset. The first patent we were granted covers the extraction and standardization of natural psilocybin from the magic mushroom. And the reason why this is so important, we think, is because it will set us in very good stead for the rest of our patent application portfolio. If we received a patent on method number 1, it stands to reason that we have a reasonably good chance of getting the patent issuance for methods number 2 and 3. I should also add that more than just extraction is necessary to produce a pharmaceutical grade extract of these kinds of substances. You need to purify, you need to standardize, you need to have compositions of matter related to the different delivery methods that you're going to employ. All of these other things are the subject of many other aspects of our IP portfolio. One of the important reasons for, yet another important reason for embarking on a naturally focused company is this idea that without a natural angle, without a natural option, consumer uptake will be less. If these psychedelic substances continue to show the efficacy that they have done so far in early clinical work, it's important that consumers have as many options as possible. And there are certainly a subset of consumers that will feel much more comfortable with a natural option versus a synthetic option. Not too many people out there prefer synthetic caffeine to natural caffeine. Not too many people out there prefer artificial food dye to natural food colorings. And really, that's the option so far that we're being presented with in the psychedelics market, an option that only consists of synthetic compounds. So we feel it's our responsibility to bring a natural option, especially because it may increase consumer adoption, especially in any non-pharmaceutical future markets that arrive. So far, the only legal market is the pharmaceutical market, the pharmaceutical development market. But what we're seeing in places like Oregon State and others is that some kind of adjacent market will arrive. And in those kinds of non-pharmaceutical situations, we do believe that natural products will be the clear choice, especially as we believe that they can be made cheaper than synthetic, and certainly with fewer chemical residues and questionable byproducts. Quickly on the team, the core scientific and operational team has come with me. Very fortunate to have had that happen from a previously exited company. This is a company that was fully Health Canada certified, had a 35,000 square foot manufacturing facility, and processed multiple tons of biomass per day. So large scale manufacturing is certainly within our DNA, as it were. And we've added a significant amount of experience in terms of capital markets, in terms of FDA regulatory development, as well as in intellectual property development. On top of that, we've layered a really strong board of directors. Greg Mills, who's the chair, for instance, was the former head of RBC Global Equities. Maureen O'Connell, who's our audit committee chair, is the former CFO of Scholastic. And Chris Wagner has significant experience in big pharma and in biotech. I should talk a bit about a Filament Foundation. The founders of Filament have pledged 10% of their founder shares to the Filament Foundation. The Filament Foundation has been set up in order to make donations to other entities in the ecosystem, which are supportive of psychedelics, especially of natural psychedelics. This is our way sort of giving back and supporting the community. Oops. And with that, I'd like to conclude and turn it over for any questions, if there are any.
Thank you very much, Ben. We do have time for a couple of questions, 1 or 2 questions quick. Let's go quick. Can you just speak a little bit more about the natural versus synthetic, and why you've chosen to go the way you have?
There's a few reasons. Number one is that people want natural, right? It's not hard to find examples where there's a vast consumer preference for a natural option. I mentioned coffee and caffeine. Not too many people taking synthetic caffeine in the morning, but just look to the cannabis market, right? See what percentage of cannabinoid sales are synthetically produced. It's a very small percentage. People prefer products that were extracted from nature. That's the primary reason. The second most important reason was the ability to claim a whole bunch of IP. As we know, these natural compounds are not patentable in and of themselves because they are found in nature and because they've just been generally known for a long time. But what it is possible to do is patent methods for their manufacture. In our case, for natural manufacturing, there's actually a limited number of ways in which it's possible to make these products naturally, and we've been able to identify what they are and then file for patent protection on them. And recently, actually, haven't been granted a patent for one of those methods. Additionally, we believe we can manufacture these products for a lower cost and certainly with fewer chemical residues and byproducts. But perhaps the most important advantage, which will take some time to prove, is perhaps there's actually greater efficacy in a naturally extracted product because there are multiple compounds that you extract along with, say, the psilocybin when you make a magic mushroom extract. We don't have any evidence yet, but obviously one day we hope to have that evidence. And if we can prove greater efficacy than with a synthetic product, well, that's obviously the very best reason to pursue natural.
All right. Ben Lightburn is the CEO and the co-founder of Filament Health. Ticker is up on the screen. URL is up on the screen. Ben, thanks so much for coming on the Benzinga Small Cap Healthcare Conference today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.